It is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is
The Hyperspace.
Podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcast pioneers to the hyperspace. Podcasting in the 25th century, the interweb's first and, yes, still only podcast. My name is Jared, and currently Matt and Mike are out trick-or-treating, but we could not let a Halloween pass without giving you an episode of the hyperspace. We're now going to look back at almost 5 years of podcasting magic by the hyperspace, focusing exclusively on those tales of fright and all of our favorite Halloween stories. I would like to kick this episode off with one of my favorite Mike stories. This is from 2020, as he details how he almost went to prison on a Halloween long ago. Take a listen and be sure to come back here for more.
The year is 1990. It's my freshman year of college.
So you are, in fact, 46 at this point.
I was fresh out of high school, and I had some friends, and we all decided that we were going to get up to some shenanigans on Halloween night. So one of the things we decided to do that we thought would be hilarious is water balloon passing cars. The guy whose house we went to lived on a street corner, and across the street from him was like a field. It was a field, and the side that faced the road was lined with trees. So this was the perfect vantage point for bombing cars. Well, we did it once, and we took off running, and we hid behind his garage while this car trolled around looking for us. He finally gave up. We went on to other things. We went egging and other stuff like that. So we decided, oh hey, well let's enough time has passed. Let's do this again. Let's go water balloon a car. So we walk across the street. The side facing the road had an embankment, so it was like up above any cars that drove past. So it was like perfect for, hitting cars as they drove under you. So then we were ready, and then we see headlights. All right, here we go. This is the car we're going to hit. So the car drives past, and we just all four. You hear those balloons just exploding on the roof of that car that I look and I see numbers on, and a blue light that is unlit upon the roof of this car. And I yell, "It's the fucking police." And we hear, so we are like, oh, we took off running across this field like the devil was behind us. I mean, we were flying. We ran as hard and as fast as we could into these woods. So we're in the woods, And we're tromping around in the dark in the woods. And I remember at one point somebody said, "Oh, there's a barbed wire fence." And another friend who was bigger than me, he walked through, and I said, "Where's the fence at?" And he's like, "Oh, I just destroyed it, so don't worry about it." So we get to the edge of the woods to a house, and there was a girl we went to school with who lived in the house. So we're all huddled in the trees in the dark, and at that moment, a car pulls up with this girl in it with her friend driving. So my friend, Alan, says, "I'll go up and talk to her and she'll let us in her house." And we're like, okay. So from my vantage point, I look up because we're on an incline, and I see him like creeping out of the woods. And then I hear this, "Ah! Ah!" And then he's like running back into the woods, flailing and hiding. What had happened is the passenger side was facing the woods, and they were talking to each other. So the girl that lived in the house was facing away from the woods, but the driver, while speaking to the girl, was facing the woods, and she saw Alan come creeping out of the woods towards their car. And Alan said he could see her face as she went, "Oh my God." And they both turned around and they started screaming. So we managed to like settle them down. And we went into the basement of her house, and man, she was shaking. She was so scared. I mean, she was like, oh my God, I just didn't know who was coming. And what we didn't know until we went in her basement was that the cops had set up roadblocks, and they were looking for us. And they had stopped them before they pulled into her driveway, saying they were looking for someone throwing bombs at cars. And so we hid out in this house for, 30 or 40 minutes. And eventually they went away, and we went back to his house. But I can say without a doubt, that is the most terrified I've ever been in my entire life. When I saw that number on the top roof of that car and knew that what we have done, we can't go back and undo.
It's like
it's the only thing we can do is run, and run we did.
It's like the movie The Fugitive.
They never caught you.
No, thank God.
Tommy Lee Jones gets out of the car.
I don't care.
I mean, when I heard those brakes, it's like, I yelled that. I mean, no one said, "Let's run." I mean, we just turned and ran.
Was there a foot chase?
No, because we ran straight across the field into the woods.
But you never saw like a cop get out with a
Hell
flashlight.
No. We were. I mean, we were gone. I mean, I know I've never ran that fast in my life. I know that's the fastest I've ever run in my entire life. I'd say all four of us. What's funny is one of them is a cop now.
Oh wow!
So,
He's probably told on you to his buddies and said,
Well, I mean, after that experience, he was either going to become a cop or he was going to be like
career
a cartel, a cartel guy or something. I mean, you don't go back typically, so good on him.
So so that was on Halloween night, and
1990.
that was terrifying. So I think I'm safe that even if
It's 30
by
years.
some weird cosmic accident that the person in that
So
car who's been retired for 10 years is listening to this and goes, "I remember that night."
So you were 18
Yep.
and throwing water balloons at cars.
Yes, that's what we were doing.
You were an adult, so you could have gone to jail.
Felony.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, it was a big field too. It was probably like maybe an acre, and I mean, we just flew. I mean, it was just all four of us ran in a line. I don't think anyone got ahead of anyone. It was just this like geese going south for the winter. We just was like moving across this darkened plain towards the safety and coverage of the woods. And then, of course, when the girls started screaming, we thought, well, the cops are going to hear that, so we're totally screwed now.
Man, that's crazy.
Have you checked the FBI Most Wanted? I mean, there's a lot of unsolved crimes out there that
You may have
they
just
still post up.
You could have just committed yourself to jail for a while. Man.
Mike was lucky to avoid the long arm of the law in that episode. There was some speculation that the Knoxville Police Department may still be looking for him all these years later. Next up, we want to talk about Matt's father. Matt's father apparently enjoyed making little kids cry on Halloween, and I'll let Matt tell you exactly how he went about it.
So, when I was a kid, I really liked. My brother and I were really into He-Man, and a twin brother, and that's a tough thing for parents because, we wanted the same characters and the same thing, because we didn't want to share. But that's not how it worked out.
Well, you're a twin too. I mean, that's complicates things.
Exactly. But like it kind of turned out that my brother got a slew of characters that I didn't have, and vice versa. I had some that he didn't, and I wound up getting Castle Grayskull, and he wound up getting Snake Mountain. Oh. And for those who aren't familiar with Snake Mountain as a place, it was pretty cool.
It was cooler than Grayskull, really.
It was cooler than Grayskull.
Had that microphone that you talked into.
Exactly. And the main feature was it had the wolf microphone or whatever it was that distorted your voice. It had like a distortion box.
Is Snake Mountain ready to take on He-Man? Anytime!
Snake Mountain, Battle Armor, He-Man, and Skeletor each sold separately. You put the mountain together. Batteries not included.
Is your serpent ready to strike? Yes! Come, He-Man. Come to Snake Mountain. If you dare.
Snake Mountain with Echo Microphone from the Masters of the Universe collection. Action figures each sold separately from Mattel.
And it was pretty cool. But the hero of that playset was the microphone. So my father adopted that microphone as his own. And every Halloween, until I think I was out of high school. So you're talking about from what, the 1983 to 93. It's 10 years. He would somehow snake that box out of a front room window and put it in the bushes. And so what, the cord was only maybe at most 2 feet, maybe 3 feet long. But he would sit by that window, and my father would wait for the smallest kids to wander up to the door to go trick or treat. And then he would let out this in the microphone, which of course the box is making the most crazy sound of his voice. And if that kid cried, my dad had the best Halloween ever.
He was like, yeah.
Man, it was like he's chalking him up. He's putting a notch on the wall every time the kid cried. He was just laughing. Oh, I had the best time.
Oh, Matt, your father sounds like he has a streak of mischief in him. Much like his son. Anyway, moving on now. The Ben Cooper vinyl and plastic Halloween costumes were a staple in the young lives of Generation X throughout the 70s and 80s. Join us now as we listen to Matt, Jared, and special guest Brian in this episode from 2022, where we talk about our memories of beloved Ben Cooper.
You guys may or may not know this, all right? But there was a company called Ben Cooper Incorporated, okay? You know this, don't you? I could say Ben Cooper Incorporated. This company, if you're not familiar with this, listening at home, this company was started by a guy in the 1920s who was really, really into theater. He was in Manhattan, and he was designing costumes for the theater. And the Great Depression hit, and the theater went to crap. And obviously, nobody's going to the theater anymore. So he pivoted his business and got the first license from Walt Disney to make Halloween costumes. And in the 1930s, started producing those first plastic masks with that vinyl apron. And Ben Cooper Incorporated, if you grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, guaranteed you wore a costume from Ben Cooper Incorporated. They had the Star Wars license. They had the DC license. They had all the big licenses to make all those, like the Batman, the C-3PO and Darth Vader, all those costumes. And they were successful all the way up until, like, I don't know, the 1990s. And they unfortunately, went kaput. But it was just fascinating what kind of like American history this Ben Cooper Incorporated became, because everybody wore one of these costumes growing up.
Yes.
And I sent the group a picture of me in my Darth Vader Ben Cooper costume.
Yes. I had that same exact costume as well growing up. I wore it one year. And it's funny how they would, of course, when we were young, the safety was starting to be more of a, it was becoming more important to makers of the costumes that we wore. And so the costumes from Ben Cooper, especially, they weren't necessarily authentic to the character you wanted. Like Darth Vader, of course, the Darth Vader costume had a black cape and the apron was black, but it also had actually a picture of Darth Vader smashing out of this bright orange explosion, so you would be able to see this costume at night. And I think very helpfully, the costume actually had a picture of Darth Vader on it, and it said Darth Vader. So there would be
driving it home.
Yeah, there's no question about who I am supposed to be right now. But I remember specifically around, the fall of every year, like Kmart and Target would start filling up with just shelves and shelves of these, these small rectangular boxes full of characters. And it was like, and that's literally, for most of my childhood, that's how I picked what I was going to be for Halloween. There was no creativity whatsoever. I mean,
No.
if Ben Cooper said that's the Spider-Man costume, that's what Spider-Man was.
That was it. I had the Hulk, this ridiculous looking Hulk face with the green muscle vinyl apron.
The ones I remember having were the Hulk, Darth Vader, Spider-Man, and Bo Duke.
Bo Duke,
which I believe I'm not 100% sure, but I believe Bo had a big, prominent Confederate flag on his chest, which would not play today. But I'm trying to find a picture.
He was just one of them good old boys. Never made no harm.
I'm trying to find a picture of the Bo Duke Ben Cooper costume.
My!
But
I had Yoda and Vader.
Oh, Yoda.
And my sister had strawberry shortcake.
I had C-3PO. And I
don't
think that was a good choice, to be honest.
3PO?
That was him.
I mean, that's probably authentic looking.
Probably closer to than Vader is.
You're probably right. It wasn't the coolest, but they were, but everybody wore these plastic masks. You couldn't really see out of them. You couldn't talk, and the breath would start.
It would just be full of moisture.
You might as well just be walking through, like, the deepest part of Brazil by the end of the night in the rainforest.
I used to pray it would be cold on Thanksgiving or on Halloween, because you would fry in these costumes.
Yeah.
They were not. They didn't breathe. I mean, you're wearing vinyl. I mean, the
those things
costume.
were hotter in Hades.
Yes, it was just a lot. But that's one thing I remember, is that's just how we picked out what we were going to be. Our parents would take us to the store and say, okay, pick out your costume. There was no thought other than to pick out the character you wanted. There was no, bless him, like our friend Charlie, he would probably 3D print a screen accurate C3PO costume. But I mean, back then, something like that was so far from my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even want to make my own costume. I wanted to buy it.
Well, the best
at
part is that
Kmart.
you were okay in this because that's to your point. That's all you had to choose from. So if you were Darth Vader, you were Darth Vader for Halloween. I mean, that was as good as it got for a 5-year-old kid. That was as good as it got.
There was nobody wearing a screen accurate Darth Vader costume in 1982 that was trick or treating.
I can almost smell the plastic and feel the humid air trapped within that plastic mask. Some fun facts. Did you know that the pastor who officiated at the wedding of Jared and Terry once chopped his son in half with a chainsaw on Halloween?
Some of my favorite Halloween memories. I had two friends I went to middle school with, Sam and his brother Josh. Their father was a Baptist preacher. He was also the head of the bomb squad in Knoxville, Tennessee. He was a policeman, and his name is Gary. And Gary every year would set up his yard. He would stage these gruesome car crashes where cars in his front yard would be crashed, and you would see body parts and stuff around the wreck. And he had an effect set up with a strobe light. This is Gary, the Baptist preacher. He would chop one of his sons in half with a chainsaw like a magic trick. Like you'd walk up to the porch, and there Gary would be with his chainsaw chopping one of his sons in half.
Was he dressed up? What was he dressed up as?
He had like a mask on, and just sort of, I mean, vaguely, I guess, leather face-ish, I guess.
Yeah.
And he had the apron on and everything. But I would go over there. I went over there for a few years and helped them set up. And I got to play like a reanimated corpse from the car crash. And this guy, Gary, the pastor, he's the one who ultimately married me and my wife.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. He officiated.
Nice.
So that was those were always some fun times, watching the Baptist preacher chop his son in half.
The iconic Universal monsters of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s are now synonymous with Halloween and are a favorite of ours here on the hyperspace.
It's moving. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's moving. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
For the last 20 years or so, every Halloween season, my wife and I watch
Captain EO.
Yes. We pull up the old YouTube, we fire up the YouTube, and we watch Captain EO. No, we save that for Christmas. During Halloween, we watch the old Universal monster films. And I'm talking about like the Boris Karloff, Frankenstein, Bela Lugosi, Dracula. And I mean, all these iconic characters that everybody knows what they look like and who they are, even if they've never seen the movies. You could go up to like a 5 or 6 year old kid today and say,
and show them a picture of Boris Karloff as the monster and say, who is that? And they'd say, Frankenstein. So we lived in Nashville, Mike. I was watching AMC. They were doing Monster Fest. And I came home from work one morning, and they were showing the original Frankenstein. And I was like, you know what? I don't think I've ever watched this thing all the way through. I couldn't go to sleep. I watched it, and I thought it was surprisingly really good. Certainly not gory, not really scary by today's standards, but it was a good, entertaining film. And it went straight into Bride of Frankenstein. And I was like, okay, well, and to my great shock, Bride of Frankenstein is a direct sequel to Frankenstein. It picks up at the ending scene of the first movie and continues on. And I was like, well, I didn't know that. I thought Bride of Frankenstein, I didn't know there was any kind of sequence to these movies. And so it continued on with Son of Frankenstein. And again, picking up where Bride left off. And I was like, well, this is a series. This is a series of movies they're doing. It was kind of serialized. And there was a DVD box set that came out in 98 that I picked up that had like, 8 or 9 of the classic Universal monster movies in it. And in this day and age of cinematic universes, this was the first cinematic universe ever presented. Because at one point, Frankenstein and the Wolfman fight in the movie Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. And from that point on, the Frankenstein series and the Wolfman series are completely intertwined. And they continue to tell the same serialized story. And this was, decades before, Marvel was doing all this. And I was like, and looking back on it with today's lens, I was like, well, holy crap, they were doing back in the 40s what I thought was truly innovative today by mashing up all these monsters and having these films all intersect with one another. So, me and Terry, the movies, of course, by all measures, they don't hold up today. But, I've got the Blu-ray sets of them, and I think they're quite charming, I guess. I think Boris Karloff's monster is a genuinely sympathetic character. I think he does a great job with that. I think I genuinely feel for him when I'm watching those movies. Of course, Bela Lugosi is the Dracula pretty much everyone thinks about to this day. And, at the beginning of Frankenstein, they actually had an actor, Edward Van Sloan, come out at the beginning of the movie and say, look, this film is crazy, and it's probably going to upset you and disturb you. So we're just telling you now. Which was kind of charming looking back on it today. But that's something they felt like they had to do back in 1931. Like, you've never seen anything like this. It's going to probably upset a lot of you, and we're sorry, but that's what it is.
How do you do? Mr. Carl Lemley feels it would be a little unkind to present this picture without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
Mike, tell us more about the adventures of Michael Myers. Certainly a seminal work of the macabre.
So the first one I'm going to go with is the original Halloween. And I picked that because I remember when it came out. Actually, I think I remember more when it came on TV. I guess I would remember it came in playing in a theater. It was 1978, I believe. And
no doubt your parents took you.
Yeah, no. I remember the first year it came on network TV, they wouldn't let me watch it. So then the next year when it came on, they said, yeah, okay, well, you can watch it this year. And I think it was in like 5th grade, maybe. And I remember I was real excited, and all day at school I was talking about, man, my parents are going to let me watch Halloween tonight. I'm going to watch Halloween tonight. It's going to be amazing watching Halloween tonight. So I started watching it, and have you both seen Halloween, the original Halloween?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
It has the best build of just about any movie I've ever seen. It has that slow, it's like a very long crescendo where it just builds and builds the suspense. And I was just getting more and more anxious as the movie went. You know, it opens with Michael killing his sister. And then, you know, at that time, it was a really great twist because you don't know who it is, and they rip the mask off, and it's a little boy, and that's shocking. And then they have that great intro of Sam Loomis in the car with the nurse, and she has that great line like where she goes, "Well, do you think we could refer to it as him?" And he's like, "If you say so."
Are there any special instructions?
Just try to understand what we're dealing with here. Don't underestimate it.
Don't you think we could refer to it as him?
If you say so.
Well, I mean, the way he just builds up this character, and then, you know, it's just. And then Michael Myers escapes, and Jamie Lee Curtis is walking around, and he's like looking at her from the house, and then he's standing across the street while she's in class, and then there's the great scene with the kids where one of the kids runs into him, and they got to the point where Jamie Lee Curtis comes home, and she's standing at her window, and she looks in her backyard, and Michael Myers is standing there in the sheets, and that was it. I was done. I changed the channels.
You turned the channel?
Yes. I was like, that's it. No more. I've had enough. And I did not finish it the first time I tried to watch it.
Wow. How old were you?
I think I was in 5th grade.
That's pretty young. That's pretty young.
I'd have to do the math on that. Oh, God, I couldn't take it. It was too much. It was too much.
I enjoy that movie, but when I think of the trifecta of horror villains in the sense of Mike Myers, Freddy Krueger, and Jason Voorhees, Mike Myers to me is the most vanilla of the bunch.
I think he's the scariest. No, he has that great blank face.
I just, you know, maybe it's maybe I don't know, maybe because I saw the movie a little later in life. I didn't watch it as like a young kid. I watched it like as an older teenager, and it wasn't holding up for me quite as much. But, you know, I'm not taking anything away from it. I agree with you. It's still an excellent movie.
It has that amazing theme. Like, the theme right away puts you on the edge of your seat.
I agree. It's got some good elements. But to me, I still think that Mike Myers is 3rd tier on that list.
Well, I hope that...
Dang.
We might need to edit that part out because you might have some people coming for you. It's all right, guys. Hey, everyone, Michael Myers fans. It's all right. He has his opinion. It doesn't take away...
Once I tell you my first one, you're just going to make fun of it anyway. So
anyway, Jared, do you have anything to add?
To the Michael Myers?
Yeah.
No. I haven't seen it, obviously, as much as you have. And I probably didn't see it for the first time until I was maybe a senior or in college, maybe. I liked it. You know, I always meant to revisit it and then see the one that came out last year.
Yeah, it's good.
But I never got around to that, and maybe this year I will, because that's another sequel that's supposed to ignore all the subsequent sequels.
Yeah, although I think of all the franchises, Halloween has a better...
Well, it's been rebooted like 3 or 4 times, right?
Twice, but the Rob Zombie ones are complete garbage.
Okay.
No, 3 times. I'm sorry. There's the 1, 2, 3. Yeah, rebooted 3 times.
Okay.
There's actually a funny meme somebody made of the timeline of the Halloween movies, and it branches from the first one, and the other one is like, Laurie Strode is dead. Laurie Strode is alive.
Anyway, it's like a choose your own adventure. Which path of Halloween movies am I going to take? A little known fact: Halloween 6 was Paul Rudd's first, or one of his first theatrical appearances.
Really?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, that closes the book on this year's Hyperspace Halloween episode. We've taken old parts, repurposed them, and reused them, and created something new, much like Dr. Frankenstein before us. We have breathed life into this large, horrifying, and deadly podcast. Please be safe as you trick-or-treat this year. And remember, there is no chocolate in the 25th century, so if you come upon something you believe is chocolate, it is not. Don't eat it. Just because it's brown and slightly mushy, don't eat it. Have a happy Halloween, and we'll see ya next time.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to the Hyperspace Podcasting in the 25th Century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.